on the hour. A good-looking Friday evening. Tomorrow, temperatures are going to be a little bit cooler with an onshore flow, but still a pretty nice day. 60s and 70s across the board. Weather on the hour only on the Power of 50.
On World News Tonight this Friday, getting rid of Kosovo's entire population, ethnic cleansing in the final phase. The Kosovo Liberation Army, eager to take on the Serbs, but are they able to make a difference? We'll take a closer look. A national hero who's a legend in his sport. Wayne Gretzky says that he's retiring. And one of America's greatest composers, the 100th anniversary of Duke Ellington's birth, the century on Friday.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. On the chance that some people have missed the dimensions of it until now, it is as clear on this Friday as it's ever been that the Serbs in Yugoslavia want to empty Kosovo province of its ethnic Albanians, and the operative word is empty the province of its majority population. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees said today the Serbs have now driven 700,000 ethnic Albanians out. One UN official said a couple of months ago it would have seemed unbelievable. But never has ethnic cleansing been so apparent as it is tonight. We're going to start with ABC's Richard Gisbert.
Another 5,000 or 6,000 crossed into Albania today, many in complete despair. Thousands more behind them. Long, snaking lines of people stretched into Macedonia, and they're still struggling over the mountains and through the snow into Montenegro. What we are witnessing all along the border, say the people who work with refugees, is the final phase in the ethnic cleansing of Kosovo.
Terrible things are happening in Kosovo, and the brutality of the expulsions, as well as the scope of the expulsions, is picking up.
The United Nations says the Serbs have forced nearly all ethnic Albanians out of these cities. Pristina, population 225,000. Prizren, 204,000. Diakovica, 131,000. Peć, 100,000. Uroševac, 127,000. The UN believes the ethnic cleansing may be almost complete because people from Mitrovica, one of Kosovo's northernmost cities, are now showing up in the south at the border with Albania.
There is nothing left after Mitrovica, is what I'm saying. It's mostly Serbs that live in the northern end of Kosovo.
Mostly Serbs, which is precisely the kind of Kosovo President Slobodan Milosevic wanted all along. Richard Gisbert, ABC News, Kukës, Albania.
As for the NATO alliance's air campaign, they said they had one of the best nights overall. And Serb television showed these pictures today. Among the targets, the country's largest refinery complex. It was hit 3 times, and another bridge over the Danube was brought down. There were strikes at either end. NATO has tried again today to put Wednesday's civilian bombing behind it. But there are still questions about what happened. ABC's John McCarthy is at the Pentagon tonight.
And what I want to show you here is this bomb comes in. It's hard to see.
The Pentagon used gun camera video today to show how careful pilots are supposed to be. This pilot, not sure the weapon was approaching the right target, steered the 2,000-pound bomb into the woods instead. That's what aviators are trained to do when they have doubts. But the issue of whether NATO pilots have accidentally attacked the wrong targets, killing refugees, still has NATO on the defensive. New reports of additional attacks, with civilians describing NATO jets bearing down on them, picking off one tractor and then the next, has caused NATO to stop providing details, saying they are investigating.
We've told you what we know, and we don't know anything more for the time being.
We want to make sure we don't get hammered by the press as such for putting out different conflicting statements as to what happened.
Thus far, NATO admits to making only one mistake with one bomb that hit some refugees. ABC News asked several analysts to examine what the Serbs allowed cameras to photograph. ABC analyst Tony Kortesman says many details do not make sense, as though the scene had been tampered with.
You see objects in the middle of the crater which would have been blown normally perhaps 50 to 100 feet.
John Hillen, military analyst and war veteran, had similar observations.
This is not a bombing scene because the tractor is virtually untouched, and yet there are bodies lying very close to it.
But the clincher was this doll.
On the back of a trailer in one shot, and then on the back of a tractor in another shot. The same doll has been moved.
So the horrific scenes of carnage may well have been doctored by the Serbs for maximum impact. But how the refugees actually died beyond the one bomb that NATO admits went astray is still an open question for both the Serbs and NATO. And in this late development tonight, Pentagon officials say that a Serb soldier has been captured by the ethnic Albanian resistance and turned over to the United States, a first POW for the Americans in this conflict. John McWethy, ABC News, the Pentagon.
State Department said today there is compelling evidence of mass killings west of Pristina. They believe that satellite images show mass graves in the area. And the U.S. government says don't expect the war to be over anytime soon, which is why the U.S. is significantly increasing the size of its force in the Balkans. The Pentagon has reportedly asked President Clinton to call up 33,000 reserves. Here's ABC's Barry Serafin.
Steve Grindle, a sergeant in the Pennsylvania Air National Guard, was preparing to leave his wife Linda and their children last night after receiving a phone call from his commander.
We call it the dreaded phone call.
Grindle was one of a dozen members of his unit who volunteered to serve in the air war.
There's always uneasiness, but you try to put that aside because, you know, you have a job to do.
About 400 members of National Guard and Reserve units are already serving voluntarily in Operation Allied Force. Today, Defense Secretary Cohen would not confirm the planned call-up of thousands more, saying only,
well, I think it'll be a significant number.
Most would be crews flying aerial refueling missions in support of the intensified air war. A sustained campaign without the additional tanker crews would be impossible.
60% of the tanker assets in the Air Force are in the Guard and Reserve.
In fact, 1.5 million men and women from 4,100 communities, fully one-half of America's military manpower, are members of the National Guard and Reserves. In units like the 163rd Refueling Wing in California, they're waiting to see if they will be called up.
Everybody's really excited. I think anybody that you would talk to out here says that we're more than ready to go.
And they may have to be ready to stay. The president has the authority to keep reservists and National Guard members on duty for up to 270 days. Barry Serafin, ABC News, Washington.
In a moment, America's only ally on the ground in Serbia, the Kosovo Liberation Army. We'll take a closer look.
You're ready to quit. Great. Now, which patch? With Nicoderm CQ, you step down your dose gradually, but you can't do that with Nicotrol. You can wear Nicoderm CQ 24 hours, so it's still with you when you wake up. You can't do that with Nicotrol. Can it be used by heavy and light smokers? Only CQ. And CQ was the patch most prescribed by doctors. Nicoderm CQ, the power to calm, the power to comfort, the power to help you quit.
It's April. Can showers be very far behind? Remember to protect your deck with Thompson's Wood Protector. Rain, sun, mildew. Nothing we make works harder, longer, so nothing can rain on your parade. Thompson's Wood Protector. It never takes a day off.
Does tossing one of these into your tank kill germs? Well, here's one way to be sure. Lysol Continuous Action Automatic Toilet Cleaner. It not only cleans, it kills germs. No other automatic toilet cleaner kills more. You have our word on it.
I see we're getting quite a jump on this.
Has just made like a sort of a recent move in the last 3 minutes.
How's your day going? How are the pharmaceutical stocks doing?
First thing on the docket is to get as much information as I can.
Yeah, let me check it.
Average daily volume being 27,000, so it looks like we're on track. So I can provide our clients with the best detailed information possible.
We're going to help them with all the research and all the information that we have here.
There's some regulatory legislation going adverse effect on their stock.
Chart looks good.
Checking with you next week.
Sounds great. Nice talking to you. Have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend, too.
Thanks.
I'm 64. Is there anything I can do to stop bone loss?
Absolutely. Here's proof. In a landmark clinical study, Caltrate actually stopped bone loss in women at risk for osteoporosis, whatever your age.
It's never too late for Caltrate.
Life's an adventure because you're over 50 and still exploring. So take the Centrum made just for you, Centrum Silver, with age-essential nutrients specially adjusted to keep pace with your changing nutritional needs. Centrum Silver, it's a great time to be silver.
We're going to take a closer look tonight at the Kosovo Liberation Army, the KLA, because the Clinton administration and some members of Congress are now thinking hard about sending the KLA money and weapons. KLA is the only ground force fighting the Serbs, and after declaring it just about finished, U.S. officials now say it is making a comeback. So let's go first to ABC's Dean Reynolds, who's in Tirana in Albania.
One KLA unit in action in Kosovo this week, on the lookout for Serbian troops. Coming under intense fire from their heavily armed enemies, and calling in those Serbian positions for NATO airstrikes. NATO gets all our information, says this KLA fighter. They have no tanks and no planes, but the KLA guerrillas can cause trouble for Serb forces. And their numbers are swelling with new recruits. Every day this week, from every corner of the world, volunteers of Albanian descent have landed at the Albanian port of Durrës. Finland, America, wherever Albanians live, this KLA officer says, they are ready to go back to their land. Here in Albania, this video announces an emergency mobilization of all men 18 to 50 years of age. There are ads posted worldwide and appeals on the internet. There is no way to tell exactly how many people have rallied to the cause in recent weeks, but the urgent appeal has apparently resonated far and wide. This KLA leader in Tirana, Albania, claims there have been so many volunteers, the problem now is training and equipping all of them. The Serbs have been shelling KLA bases in Albania and Kosovo all week, and while the attacks may hinder the KLA's attempts to rejuvenate itself, they may well have another effect, making the new recruits that much more eager to fight. Dean Reynolds, ABC News, Tirana, Albania.
Well, if they really are eager to fight, it makes many people in Washington that much more eager to support them. The U.S. is looking for an ally against the Serbs, certainly one on the ground. But they should know what they're getting into. Whatever the future is, you are looking at what someone called a reservoir of angry and frustrated young men eager to get at the Serbs.
A violent resistance to Serbian repression was supported by a small group of people who came out of earlier student demonstrations, and several of them have been jailed. Many of them have a Marxist background.
The KLA is a young organization with some of its financial support from ethnic Albanians who live and work in Western Europe, and some of it, according to European police, from trading in drugs, mostly heroin.
There's absolutely no doubt that the Kosovo Albanians have been involved in the drug trade for some time. But the KLA is fighting a war and is not in the business of sorting out where its funding comes from.
There is no doubt that the KLA has contributed to the madness in Kosovo. Their attacks on Serb civilians have caused more than one American official to describe them as terrorists. Now the United States may become their patron. NATO has one other item for us today. It's been dropping leaflets over Yugoslavia urging Serb soldiers to defect. One leaflet reads, more than 13,000 members of the Yugoslav army have already defected. Stay here and leave your bones or run away as soon as you can. The choice is yours. Another flyer bearing the image of an Apache ground attack helicopter warns, you cannot hide because we can still see you. When we come back, we'll move on to the day's other news, and goodbye to the great one.
Which plant food do America's top professional growers use? Let's go right to the source.
Bonnie Plant Farm grows over 100 million plants. Got to have the right stuff. Every time we water, we feed these plants with Miracle-Gro. The quality, the vitality, the character of the plant is much better. Look at the roots on this rascal. It wraps all the way around the plant. And it's done this because it has been fed with Miracle-Gro for 6 weeks. We use the very best seed and the very best plant food, Miracle-Gro.
Try new genuine Bear Gel Caps, the only gel cap that can help save your life. New Bear Gel Caps, powerful pain relief, and so much more.
Civic from Honda. What about now?
Out here, I'm in command. So am I supposed to say, slow down, guys, I'm constipated? I don't think so. You try to eat right. Sometimes you can't. Harsh chemical laxatives, they can kick in whenever and wherever. Not an option. So I rely on doctor-recommended Metamucil. It's got 100% natural fiber. Works with my body, gently, which is important to a sensitive guy like myself.
Metamucil, the doctor's natural choice for regularity.
Some of the other news today in Florida, fire has now burned through more than 6,000 acres of bone-dry land in the eastern city of Port St. Lucie. Winds pushed the flames from block to block. 48 homes were destroyed. Tonight, firefighters say the fires have been contained. On the money tonight, a $46 million fine for the pilots at American Airlines. A federal judge in Dallas has ordered the pilots union to pay American for losses suffered during a work stoppage in February. Basically, the judge said he didn't believe the pilots when they called in claiming they were sick. Unless the union wins on appeal, the union needs to raise some money. Price of cereal is going up again. General Mills, which makes Cheerios, Wheaties, and Lucky Charms, is raising prices. Parents will complain, and the company says it's inflation. On Wall Street today, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was up more than 31 points to close at 10,493. That is 5 highs in 5 days. On the NASDAQ, stocks were down 37 points. One of the world's most talented athletes is retiring. It is true what somebody said today. There was Babe Ruth and Muhammad Ali and Michael Jordan and Wayne Gretzky. Many would say the greatest hockey player there's ever been. For hockey fans, there'll be nothing else to talk about this weekend. And in Canada, where hockey's woven into the national character, seeing Gretzky play one last game on Canadian ice was never to be forgotten. ABC's Aaron Brown reports on last night in Ottawa.
They arrived last night dressed for the occasion, to honor, to plead, and especially to thank Canada's favorite son.
A talent, an ambassador, a humble guy from a small Canadian city. You know, he's everything we value up here.
Fans know every detail, that he was a superstar at 10. They know the 4 Stanley Cups, his televised marriage to the actress Janet Jones. They know the trade from Canada to L.A. They know the astounding 61 NHL records he holds, for the goals he scored and the passes he made. And both they and he seemed to be remembering and cherishing every bit of it last night.
When I was 16 years old and I was in junior hockey playing for $21 a week and just as happy. And I got standing ovations from the Ottawa fans back in those days.
He is a superstar athlete in an everyman body. Not the strongest, not the guy with the hardest shot or the fastest skates, but those eyes. He seems to see the game in slow motion.
I never considered myself bigger than any person I ever played with, but obviously I was lucky enough to be God-gifted. For some reason, the good Lord gave me a special talent.
Last night, they implored him to play one more year, but like his teammates who cheered him and the opponent, Russian-born, who asked for his stick, they all knew it was over, and what remains are the memories of 20 years of exquisite hockey.
Probably when I retire, when that eventually happens one day, I'll be able to sit back and say, you know what, pretty proud of what I've accomplished.
And Canadians and the rest of us were pretty lucky to have seen it. Aaron Brown, ABC News, New York.
One last game on American ice in New York on Sunday. In a moment, the Century on Friday.
It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing.
Wherever you go, all over the world, as you walk into the club, you hear a Duke Ellington song.
Music for the ages.
World News Tonight with Peter Jennings and the Century. Brought to you by AXA and the Equitable.
I can help you plan ahead and make sure you have money for things like your kids' education.
That's fantastic. But I was thinking about starting my own business.
As a matter of fact, that's part of the plan, too. Now, here's the best part. Guaranteed income for you and Meg to retire in style.
AXA, dynamic vision. Equitable, a trusted resource. Call us. Equitable is a member of the global AXA Group.
There are certain things your body is going through that the chemo is doing to you. I was tired, very, very tired. One time, my grandchildren were all over, and they all went out and got ice cream. And they're all lined up on the porch, all with ice cream. They start from the age of 3 all the way up to 18 years of age. What a photograph that had to be. I did not have the energy to go upstairs to grab the camera. I missed the photograph. To me, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Go out. Live your life. That's what I'm doing now.
Our latest innovation springs from a very old idea, that heat cleans better. And so, Bissell introduces the first and only upright deep cleaner with an onboard heater. A common sense idea to make cleaning even cleaner. The new Power Steamer Pro Heat Plus from Bissell. Life's messy. Clean it up.
The 99 Mitsubishi Eclipse. Postponed adulthood, starting in under $17,500. Now available with 0.9% APR financing for 48 months.
Lively conversation every morning. Wrestling Sunday afternoons. Flower arranging weekends. Bike riding whenever. Boost daily with essential vitamins and minerals. Boost is just one of those special things you do to take care of yourself. In bars and drinks, Boost, a nutritional part of this complete life.
Tonight, electric blankets. They're supposed to keep you warm, but what if it catches fire with you under it? Some of them have.
I woke up to flames at the foot of the bed.
A Startman 2020 consumer investigation tonight.
Coming up next on Channel 2 News, it's chaos at PDX concourses after an airline sick-out leaves passengers grounded. And now showing a weekend wildlife getaway where the admission is free. I'm Steve Dunn. News of the Northwest is next.
Finally tonight, the Century on Friday. You may have noticed this week when the Pulitzer Prizes were handed out to some of the country's great talent that a special award went to Duke Ellington in recognition of his musical genius. Ellington died 25 years ago, but the mark he made on American music was indelible. The great trumpet player Miles Davis said, all musicians should get down on their knees one day to thank Duke Ellington. Tonight, the Duke.
He wrote in every style, every mode, sacred concerts, Broadway musicals. He just never stopped writing, and he wrote more music than any composer in the history of the world.
He's a great composer. Our greatest 20th century composer.
You are cordially invited to join the finger snapping. And if you would like to be conservatively hip and at the same time tilt the left earlobe, establish a state of nonchalance.
Edward Kennedy Duke Ellington was born in Washington, D.C. 100 years ago this month. His father was a White House butler, when the only way a black man could get into the White House was as a servant. He was a natural musician, but he came to a career in music almost by accident.
He painted and he drew. He at one point thought he was going to be a visual artist before he became successful as a musician.
All right, now the first course would be cornet and trombone.
Ellington was a talented pianist. As a teenager, he began filling in at Washington's Poodle Dog Cafe. In 1915, he wrote his first composition, Soda Fountain Rag. Then he formed his own band and moved to New York City. Ellington helped establish the emerging jazz age, of the 1920s. When Ellington's band settled in for a 3-year stint at the Cotton Club in 1927, Harlem was already jumping to a vibrant new sound, which curious white patrons racistly described as jungle music. To many of his newest fans, jazz sounded spontaneous, conceived in the moment. But Ellington's art was in making it seem that way.
Until I went to the Smithsonian and looked at the scores of Duke Ellington myself, I always thought that his band kind of put the music together. But Duke Ellington was up every night on the road writing music.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our famous Cotton Club. If you can spare a minute from your merrymaking, I'd like to have the pleasure of introducing the greatest living master of jungle music, the rip-roaring harmony hound, none other than Duke Ellington. Take your bow, Dukey.
Aided by his partner and his near alter ego, Billy Strayhorn, Ellington wrote and lushly orchestrated thousands of songs. Among them, such standards as Take the A-Train, Mood Indigo, Satin Doll, and It Don't Mean a Thing if It Ain't Got That Swing.
It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing.
He was a supreme writer of ballads and beautiful songs like Sophisticated Lady and Creole Rhapsody. He was a master of the blues, wrote more blueses than anyone, and more different types of blueses.
Ellington bridged the gap between classical music and jazz. His interpretation of The Nutcracker by Tchaikovsky. In April 1969, on his 70th birthday, Ellington was invited to the Nixon White House, a delicious irony for the son of a White House butler. By then, of course, he'd become a national treasure, his music deeply embedded in American cultural identity, where it remains today.
Wherever you go, all over the world, wherever there's a little bistro and there's some jazz players playing, as you walk into the club, you hear a Duke Ellington song.
The Harlem Renaissance was a fascinating time. Duke Ellington was a big part of it. You can find out more about it on our website, thecentury.com. Just a brief review of our top story today. Not nearly as happy. The UN said the Serbs have driven 700,000 ethnic Albanians out of Kosovo now. It's being called by many the final phase in the ethnic cleansing of the Serb province. The United States is planning a substantial increase in its contribution to the NATO force. The Pentagon has asked President Clinton to call up a reported 33,000 reserves. That is our report on World News Tonight. Later on 2020, an experimental procedure to treat stroke victims, and on Nightline, NATO turns 50, how the war is affecting the celebration. I'm Peter Jennings. Have a good weekend, and good night.
Sunday on This Week with Sam Donaldson and Cokie Roberts.
An exclusive interview with Elizabeth Dole, plus Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, ABC Sunday.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More